Terence Crawford, who shocked everyone by defeating Tszyu this past weekend, is ready to take on Bakhram Murtazaliev.
Будет это Чарло, будет это Крофорд, будет это Фундора, Спенс. Не имеет никакого значения. Приоритет это пояса. Если нету поясов.
After destroying Tszyu in the third round, fans are wondering if Terence Crawford would be interested in a unification bout with IBF junior middleweight champion Murtazaliev. Crawford just defeated Israel Madoff to win the WBA 154-pound gold, and he plans to face WBC WBO champion Sebastian Fondor. When the WBO allowed Fondor to voluntarily defend against Errol Spence, that battle ended. Keith Thurman then asked whether Terence Crawford would be interested in taking on Bakhram Murtazaliev, the IBF junior middleweight champion. There is no proof that he won't be avoided again, he said. The only positive thing about him is that he is a champion, which allows him to continue fighting and dominating IBF members, growing his fan base and demonstrating his value to the 154 division. However, does Bud want Murtazaliev? Does Bud accept that conflict? According to Thurman, Terence Crawford is probably going to avoid Bakhram Murtazaliev following his incredible triumph against Tszyu. He emphasizes that Crawford might be reluctant to face such a strong opponent at this time, while Merv is intent on defending his IBF belt. Although Murtazaliev's recent performance has created a lot of interest in the division, Thurman points out that it also puts pressure on elite fighters like Crawford to thoroughly think through their next movements. Keith went on to say, "Who really wants it and takes it and says, that's my next opponent? Does Bam stay in his IBF lane while defending his title? He claims he must stay in his lane until another opportunity to do another fantastic fight in this division of the boxing world presents itself, but at the moment, he has a lot of us excited coming to the major upset back room pulled up against the favorite Tszyu. The Australian claims he didn't know what he got hit with.
What did I get hit with? And I'm gonna regroup and I don't know, man.
In round 2, Murtazaliev knocked the former WBO 154 PB champion Tszyu with a left hook, and that's when it went south for the 29-year-old Tszyu because he never recovered from that shot. He went on the attack and tried to slug with Murtazaliev, but he couldn't recover from it. He kept getting up, but it wasn't going to work. Tim asked, "What just happened? What did I get hit with? I have to regroup and I don't know, man, it doesn't go your way and you have to bounce back. I was positive after Fondor, but I've got to find some answers after this. It didn't go as planned. I felt unreal." He understood me. On the night we lived, we discovered that he was the superior man. Tszyu sought to bounce back from his March split decision loss to Sebastian Fondor, but Murtazaliev, who controlled from the beginning, presented a harsh reality. In the second round, Murtazaliev knocked down Tszyu 3 times, so the Australian could hardly reach the bell and needed a medical check before he could continue. Tszyu quickly fell to the canvas once more, but his corner stepped in to halt it since the referee had threatened to end the fight with one more knockdown. Although Tim suffered the price for underestimating Bam's strength, he praised his opponent, stating, "Congratulations to my opponent for the fantastic performance. Yes, we move on and regroup, and my team will return. I will return. I still have a big fight coming up, and I need to find a lot of answers for myself." Naturally, Tszyu will have a very hard time getting back up after the most recent loss, because many of the best fighters in the 154 PB division will point out his weaknesses during the fight, and even the younger fighters like Yenis Tess will exploit what Morali has revealed.
My dad told me from a young age, never give up. And if you shoot for the stars and you crash and burn on the way, just keep going. And I'm gonna keep going and keep reaching for them stars. Thank you all.
Terence Crawford says Tszyu took Murtazaliev lightly, focusing on other fighters he wanted to face. Crawford, who holds the WBA 154-pound title, states that Mount Salve was just too strong for the former WBO champion Tszyu. Crawford wrote, "Tim thought he had an easy one, took this dude lightly, and was worried about other fighters. Tim thought he had already won the fight before he stepped inside the ring with backers. Before the fight, Tim was already looking into the future, planning on facing bigger stars like Crawford and Errol Spence Jr., and thinking of Bam as a stepping stone. Tim said this before the fight, 'I'm leaning more toward Fondor beating Spence due to activity and height. I don't know what Spence is still doing there. A Crawford fight against me would be cracking. Styles make fights, and that one would be one hell of a show. I think Crawford did well against Israel Madoff. Critics are always going to be like that. Murtazaliev is not a person. Don't understand that this clearly shows that Tim's mindset approaching this fight wasn't the best. Underestimating a champion like Murtazaliev, who has an exceptional knockout ratio, is not the wisest thing to do, and Tim had to pay for this eventually. Before the fight, Sean Porter highlighted the fierce competitiveness of the 154-pound division, asserting that it is currently the toughest division in boxing. He stated that Tszyu is easily among the top 3 fighters in this category, reflecting his skill and potential. Porter stressed the depth of talent in this division, which presents a challenging landscape for any contender. By recognizing Tszyu's place in the top tier, he highlighted the high stakes of Tszyu's upcoming fight with Murtazaliev.
Read on the landscape at 154. Where's Tszyu sit in there?
Becoming the hottest division right now. 135 is still really high. We've got some of the lighter weights. 26 is really hot. 68, 75. We've got some hot divisions right now. I feel like 154 might be the most competitive division in boxing right now. And I think Tim is still, even with the loss that he got to Fundora, we saw how the fight unfolded, why it unfolded, or possibly why it unfolded the way that it did. Tim's been in the top 3 at 154. I think 2023. I think that was the first time I come over there to Australia, ever since I've seen Tim.
However, now that the fight is done and dusted, Porter believes that Tszyu came into this fight with an arrogant mindset, which led to his quick exit. Porter said they shouldn't have tried to fight fire with fire. That's his style. I get that, but I feel like moving and turning was the right thing to do. You put that on coaching as far as getting back to world contention. I'm not sure when you've been at the top. You're a step away from getting back there. There were many others that already deemed Tszyu as the winner. Danny expressed confidence in the Tszyu, but acknowledged the fight's difficulty. I think mad fight all the way to the end of the bell is going to be a sweaty decision. Not that Tszyu is not going to win. I think Tszyu is going to win for sure, but I'm talking about making it to the final bell. I think Tszyu by decision is the play for me in this one. Paoli Malagi highlighted the significance of the fight, noting that despite the differences in profiles between Tszyu and Murtazaliev, the winner will dramatically elevate their standing in the competitive 154-pound division. He said, "It's not a walkover, even though one may be more well-known than the other, and one may have a bigger profile than the other. But it's a fight where the winner certainly raises their profile tremendously. If it's Tszyu, he's back in the win column and back in the mix, and if it's Murtazaliev, you know what? Now you've got a different player in the 154 LB division, a weight class that is already rather full of talent in boxing." Anil Ior Golubev pointed out the challenges Tszyu would face in the ring. "The dangerous part of him is that he's really tough, and he's dangerous," he said, adding, "Listen, it's not an easy opponent. The way to take his background is we watch his fights." Golub's evaluation emphasized Tszyu's increased determination after losing to Sebastian Fondor, implying that this match might reveal a more driven and focused version of him. He appears to be in pain, and that's because his hands have always been heavy. Nikita Tszyu, Tim Tszyo's younger brother, made a daring forecast about Bakhram Mortal's level of toughness. He claimed that Tim needs to make holes in his skull because it appears that he has a hard head and a thick skull. He needs to start practicing wall punching. According to Nikita, Murtazaliev's style makes him quite easy to hit. He claimed that in the later stages of the fight, Tim would stop him and break him down.
I think Bakhram, he's got a style that's pretty easy to hit. He comes forward a lot. I think Tim will kind of just break him down throughout the rounds, and I see just him breaking him down over the end throughout the course of the fight and possibly stopping him by the end.
For Tim, however, this was not the case because Murtazaliev prevented him from starting his offense. Chris Algieri emphasized Mert Salva's skill set despite his lack of widespread recognition and warned against underestimating him. He stated, "I don't know how much this would be a huge upset. Mev is actually a very good fighter. He's got a terrific right hand. He's fundamental. He's physically strong. He's big. He's tall for the weight class. This is not an effortless fight for Tim Tszyu. It's not a walkover by any means. Just because we haven't heard of him or the boxing public hasn't heard of him doesn't mean the guy can't fight Al. Jerry emphasized the significance of the fight for Murtazaliev, noting this is a huge opportunity for Muralv, but it's certainly not a walkover bout whatsoever. Tim Tszyu got his hands full because Mort V can fight. Peter Bottles said that Tim would face immense pressure, considering that a loss now would put a halt to his promising career. He said Tim Tszyu is the challenger in this fight, and he needs to bring the goods. A loss here for Tszyu is not career-ending, but it's catastrophic and seriously damaging to his reputation. If he loses 2 in a row, Tim comes into this fight with that burden of pressure and expectation. Battle underscored the high stakes for Tszyu, emphasizing that a victory was crucial for him to regain his standing in the boxing community after his earlier loss. He turned to Bakhram Murtazaliev and noted the potential threat he posed, stating that, morally, given the fact that he's maligned and unknown, he can just go out there and throw the bombs that he throws. Battle cautioned that Murtazaliev's impressive record and the desperation that comes with being underestimated make him a significant threat, capable of delivering powerful punches even in the later rounds. Battle continued. A desperate man is a dangerous man, and I think Murtazaliev, while underestimated, has a 22-0 record with 16 knockouts that shows he's got the power and can transfer that power into the later rounds as he did against Ko in his last fight when he knocked him out in the 11th round battle. He stated that Tim Tszyu must make a statement in this fight against Murtazaliev to solidify his status in the 154 PB division. He emphasized that a win was essential for Tszyu to reaffirm his position among the top contenders and regain momentum after his previous loss. Winning this match would not only boost Tszyu's confidence, but also signal to others in the division that he is a serious threat, making it a pivotal moment in his career.
Back-to-back losses in the fight game can be really hurtful. So particularly for a guy like Tim who wants to be the king of the 154 division, maybe ratings-wise to a lot of people he is, but in terms of belts he's not. So this is where Tim needs to make a statement in this fight and then over the next 12 months to become potentially a unified champion at super welterweight.
Considering that there were many who cautioned Tim to take Murtazaliev seriously, it's no wonder that Murtazaliev winning the fight is no fluke. After the fight, Bottled Tszyu was a little bit arrogant. Early, he said, "I don't think he earned the right in this fight to dominate. He just thought he could walk him down. To me, when he fought Mendoza, he took his time with Mendoza. He was watchful early, and then in the 3rd or 4th round, he started to apply the pressure. But in this fight, he tried to almost bang early. This is a devastating loss for Tim in the Tszyu." Ben Damon described Tim Tszyu's loss as unthinkable and a monstrous upset, highlighting the shocking nature of the outcome against Bakhram Murtazaliev. He said it has been an obliteration in Orlando. Tim Tszyu down 4 times, and Murtazaliev retaining his world title in a one-sided beatdown. Keith Thurman discussed Tim Tszyu abilities, emphasizing his confidence when signing the contract. He remarked that there was nothing special about Tszyu, mentioning that Murtazaliev and his trainer claimed Tszyu was a cookie-cutter opponent made from Malaya. Thurman noted that they were able to prove their point in the fight.
You know, I mean, look what the left hook did, man. You know, I was obviously confident when I signed the contract. I said there's nothing special in what Tim Tszyu brings to the table. Earlier this week, because I was on the analytical side this evening, earlier this week, I got to interview all the fighters. And, you know, Bakhram clearly said that him and his trainer said that there's nothing special about Tim Tszyu and that Tim Tszyu is just cookie cutter made for Bakhram. And not only were they able to say that, but they were able to prove it, you know.
Thurman, working as part of the broadcast team for Premier Boxing Champions, offered a detailed analysis of Tim Tszyu performance in his recent fight against Bakhram Murtazaliev. He pointed out that Tszyu appeared unable to make necessary adjustments after being hurt early in the match, instead of adapting his strategy. Tszyu continued to fight in a manner that ultimately led to his downfall, as he was knocked down 4 times throughout the bout. Thurman stressed that Murtazaliev's team had thoroughly prepared for the bout by identifying his weaknesses and crafting a game plan that effectively exploited them. He noted that Murtazaliev's success with his left hook was a clear indication of this preparation. Thurman highlighted that Murtazaliev had previously claimed there was nothing special about the Tszyu, and during the fight, he proved that assertion to be true by dominating the former WBO 154 lb champion. He further added, "Look what the left hook did." Bam clearly said that there's nothing special about Tszyu, and he's cookie-cutter made for Murtazaliev. They were able to demonstrate that in addition to being able to state it. Tszyu's last demise resulted from his hasty return to the battle. Thurman's remarks point to a serious weakness in Tszyu's strategy, implying that he ought to have used his jab to manage the tempo. "You can't keep doing the same thing," Keith said. He was obviously injured, but instead of taking some time to recover and strategically work behind the jab to slow down the tempo, he attempted to get back into the fight right away. It was almost as if we could see reverb from the punch as a spectator, and you could practically feel Tim trembling on the ground. His entire body is urging him to stop moving. Thurman explained how Tszyu tried to throw an overhand right despite his wobbly gait, which Thurman interprets as misplaced confidence. He decided to get back up and was on Bambi's legs just as his coaches threw in the towel. He was unable to get to his feet, yet he dared to arrive with an overhand right. He isn't that dangerous or frightening. He came over here that year and tried to show that you encounter some big fish when you go from a little pool to a large one. Caleb's strategy recognized that boxing is unpredictable and that there are a lot of highs and lows associated with the sport. He acknowledged that both fighters were excellent competitors and said he had no doubts about the difficulties they would encounter in the ring.
Expected, but it's boxing, a lot of highs and lows, so.
Yeah, for sure. Crazy, right, Caleb? I don't think anybody gave Murtazaliev a win by knockout.
Maybe not that fast and that early, so.
Yeah.
But both are great fighters, so I knew it was going to be a tough fight.
No doubt.
Tszyu won't be able to return without his promoter putting him up against less formidable opponents. It's unclear how long it would take, but it would mean Tszyu would have to spend 2020-2025 fighting weaker opponents who will give up to his strength. Before reuniting with someone he can trust, he should also think about finding a new trainer who specializes in improving his boxing abilities. Instead of continuing to take on top 5 opponents like he has done in his last 2 fights, Tszyu might think about stepping back against a lower-tier opponent for his next round. His losses to Sebastian Fundora and Moralia demonstrated that he is not prepared to compete with the top 154-pound boxers. Despite being only 29, Tszyu has been battling a lot of older men and weaker opponents to improve his record. In order to stop losing at this point, he will need to change his strategy and concentrate on taking on a lower-tier opponent in order to improve as a boxer. Tim Zarafa also weighed in on this, saying that he's nothing like his father, and that a bout with another Australian boxer, Michael Zarafa, is the best option for him. Zarafa has strong thoughts on Tszyu's public demeanor and performance. He feels that Tszyu hasn't shown himself as a fighter and has been living off of hype. This opinion captures the skepticism that some fighters and fans have about Tszyu's skills in comparison to his father's legacy. "I can tell you exactly what happened," Zarafa stated. "Tim Tszyu has been discovered. I've been saying for a while that the man isn't who everyone believes him to be, but Tszyu has a fantastic hype squad, and he bought into it. He was discovered because he trusted his own hype. He is no longer like his father, as you can see. He declared he was going to take on Canelo going into the fight. Tim ignored the fact that he was up against a legitimate world champion. According to Zarafa, there have already been talks about this fight, indicating that both combatants have a lot riding on it going ahead." He went on to say, "My phone. It's been blowing up. People haven't stopped calling. Behind the scenes, there was already talk that if I beat Nikita Tszyu, then I got Tim. But there was also talk that if Tim got beat by Mort Alv, I went straight to him, so our fight has to happen now. It will happen too." Impacted title Clash Tszyu was determined to prove that he still belonged among boxing's elite. The loss to Fondor was a difficult pill to swallow, especially considering the circumstances surrounding it. Tszyu's performance was greatly impacted by a severe cut he sustained from an accidental elbow in the second round.
Here's where the cut happened. And may have been the left elbow of Sebastian Fundora.
They didn't have it on my monitor.
Right here, take a look.
Let's see.
He leans in. Watch the left elbow. There it is. The left elbow, the forearm of Fundora. Yeah, basically, Tszyu.
Before his fight with Murtazaliev, Tszyu reflected on his loss to Fundora, admitting that it was a difficult experience. He said, "I learned a lot that night. It wasn't just about the loss, but about how I handled adversity. Fighting with a cut like that, I had to dig deep. It showed me what I was capable of." The aftermath of the Fundora fight was a period of introspection for Tszyu, as he spent hours reviewing footage, analyzing his mistakes, and planning his next move. What do you think? Should Crawford face Murtazaliev next? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below.